Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
A little thing happened last Tuesday night. A little thing. By a little thing, I mean a big, big thing.
A little bit.
Big news. A big Trump win. And, well, the circular firing squad has been set up. Eric Abinante tweets out Nancy Pelosi throws Kamala and Biden under the bus by chiding Biden for not stepping down soon enough, you don't say, and endorsing Kamala Harris immediately. So Nancy Pelosi has been pretty combative about this whole thing. She has not been as conciliatory as you might think an elder stateswoman such as herself might be. So here's an interview with the New York Times where she kind of throws blame around in several different directions.
How many people in this country wake up in the morning and say, fuck, she's still alive?
Yeah. All right, let's take a look. Oops.
I do think it's important to discuss a little bit about what you think could have been done differently. And a lot of the discussion has centered around how much President Biden's delay in deciding to leave the race following the debate in June hurt the VP's campaign. You know, you were very involved in encouraging him to leave. And there's reporting that you were concerned about him being the candidate well before the debate in June. And polls were showing that the American people were very concerned about President Biden's age and his ability to lead into another term. Do you wish you'd gotten involved earlier than you did?
No, well, the president made his own decision to step aside and to endorse Kamala Harris. He made a patriotic, selfless decision and for which we are all very grateful.
She's the last holdout for that one. A patriotic, selfless decision. A patriotic, selfless decision. Look where you're at. Look where you're at.
Hey, man, that's the script. That's the party line. It went out to all the operatives. That's what you say when you're asked about this. And she is nothing if not a pro.
A patriot. Well, she has learned that throughout her years.
Just going to say what well, we can see where it's gotten everybody.
That's right.
But she's going to stick to that method.
Those
you
are
have
the talking
points, and we all sing from the same hymnal.
We did all that we needed to win the House as well as the White House. It's up to the candidate for president to make his or her own decision about timing, policy.
Do you think the timing hobbled Kamala Harris? Because she had 100 days to get a campaign off the ground, to mobilize people, to get her message across, to get her self-known. I mean, this was an incredibly truncated campaign, and many people think that maybe she was set up to fail just by the timeline alone.
Oh, I don't think she was set up to fail. But let me just say this. We're only a couple of days since the election. There'll be many reviews of timing and the who, what, when, and why, and where.
That's like when the Israelis shoot a journalist.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do an investigation later.
You say that, but it is a very similar motivating
sure.
mentality.
Sure, we'll talk about it later.
We'll talk about it later.
After everyone's forgotten about it.
When everybody's forgotten about it. When we can make up our own bullshit story of how things actually went down. Right? Now, let's just lick our wounds, take the time to heal. We'll put this off. We'll talk about this later. There will be plenty of time for this, just not at a time when most people are asking the question. Right? We want to answer these questions at a future time when people have other things on their mind.
And I feel, look, a lot of times when we have guests on who are Marxists, like Shama, we'll get some pushback from certain portions of the audience. I don't think they understand the core to the communist program is throwing Nancy Pelosi out into the bean fields to work.
Right. Yes,
exactly. I think they need to lead with that. I think they need, because that's, they go through all this theory. Just say, under our program, Nancy Pelosi and Paul Pelosi will be dragged out of their houses and forced to work in the fields.
That's right.
Start there, and now they're listening.
That's a unifying message. That's what you call
a
populist
unifying
message. Unifying populist message.
Well, I tried to get Dennis Kucinich on board with that.
Yeah. Oh, well. I wonder how he did.
And books will be written about it. The fact is, she did a great job with the time constraint that she had. Had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. Kamala, I think, still would have won, but she may have been stronger, having taken her case to the public sooner.
Okay, first of all, you insisted that there would be no Democratic primary. You insisted Biden would be the nominee. After he became the nominee, you said, well, we had a primary, even though you did not allow for an open primary. And you are correct in the sense that if Biden had stepped down, there would have been an open primary. But you said Biden won the primary. That's what you were out there saying.
Yep.
He won the primary. So now you're going to say, well, if he had gotten out sooner, we would have had a more open primary, in which case, what? You would not have rigged that in favor of Kamala Harris? Like, this is where the thing is, like, this is where the whole, you could take this disaster of an election all the way back to Barack Obama elevating Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, who would be the two next nominees. Joe Biden to vice president, obviously Hillary Clinton to secretary of state. You can go all the way back there because that is what set in motion this
cracker cabinet,
chain of
as they call
events.
it.
Yeah, that was what set in motion a chain of events that led you to here. They tried passing the ball to Hillary, didn't happen. They passed the ball to Biden. It happened because of fluke circumstances, shall we say. Biden refuses to step down, but because he picked Kamala Harris, because he promised a woman VP, and because the establishment always wanted Kamala, he picks Kamala. And then you set yourself up for a worst-case scenario where Biden melts down a few months before the vote, and he has to give the ball to Kamala, who can't finish the game. And now you're going to come here a few days after and do this revisionism about, well, yeah, I suppose if Biden had stepped down, we could have had an open primary, in which case it may not have been Kamala. A, you made sure there was no primary. B, we know for a fact that if Biden had stepped down, everybody would have endorsed Kamala. You know how we know that? Because Biden stepped down and everybody endorsed Kamala. So, like, the idea that you could have done one or two things differently and had a different outcome is nonsense. This was a burial that was really forecasted over a decade ago. In 2008, they made this bed.
Well, they really, if you want to go into the Hillary Obama thing, they decided around 2014 they're not going to have primaries. They're not really going to have primaries. They're going to decide who the nominee is going to be well ahead of time. They're going to pretend to have a primary. And whoever they want, by hook or by crook, they're going to push forward. The problem with that is when you are a member of an elite class that's completely out of touch with the American public, your idea of who that person should be is going to be completely batshit insane. The idea that Hillary was a safe bet was insane. Was insane. The idea that you're going to get, and to give a complete picture, they didn't want Biden. They wanted Kamala in 2020. They settled for Biden because they were terrified of Bernie. And by that time, Kamala, because of her own repulsiveness, had to drop out before Iowa. So instead, they backdoored her into the vice president. We'll get what we want in the end anyway. That's the pattern. We'll tell the peasants what's good for them. Problem is, they get to vote. And wherever people have the opportunity to express what they really think of these people, there is an outpouring of contempt. That is why people like Nancy Pelosi and our whole political party are obsessed with censorship. They're obsessed with imposing their ideas through control of the schools because they know they can't sell it through democratic processes. That's the irony of how much they go on about how much they love democracy. Nobody hates democracy more than the elite liberal class.
Sure thing. All right, she goes on. She's not done yet.
You've talked about your interest in having had an open primary.
Yeah.
And as you know, it would have...
Wait, I'm sorry. I hate to do this again. At what point did she express interest in an open primary? You mean now? You mean 2 seconds ago after the election? When she never expressed any interest in an open primary. All right, go
If
ahead.
you can't
Uncovered
be
her
right
weakness.
in advance, you can be right in advance in hindsight.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
About your interest in having had an open primary.
Yeah.
And as you know, it would have uncovered her weaknesses, her strengths. It would have tested her electability. That's what the primary system is intended to do. And it would have also perhaps resulted in a nominee that wasn't so tied to an unpopular president.
Well, it's interesting that you say those.
By the way, all of that, what she just described, happened in 2019, except the unpopular president part, because she wasn't an incumbent at that time, meaning the vice president. Kamala did go through a test in 2019 to see how electable she was,
right.
and she couldn't even make it to state one.
And you insisted on, according to Caleb Maupin, his excellent book about Kamala Harris, he says on the original speakers lineup for the DNC, there was a slot for Kamala Harris and there was a slot for VP. So somebody or somebody's leaned on Joe Biden and we know what a nasty, vindictive bastard Joe Biden is. There's no way that he would have picked that little girl is me person for his VP on general principles. They forced her on him. Why? That is the elite arrogance of these people. The voters didn't want her. Well, you know what? You're going to get her anyway.
Yep.
Things. I don't think that any review of the election should be predicated on weaknesses, but strengths of Kamala Harris.
Well, that's a great
She
idea.
gave people hope.
It's a great attitude.
She caused a great deal of excitement in all of this. It's about winning. You don't have to tell me that. But the fact is, we're set up for what comes next.
Should there have been an open primary, though?
Well, see, we thought that there would be, the anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. And as I say, Kamala I think she would have done well in that and been stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. We live with what happened. And because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, that really made it almost impossible to have a primary at that time.
Okay, so at the end of the day,
it's his fault.
She does throw Biden under the bus. At the end, that was a very roundabout way of saying, yeah, he screwed us. And you know what? He did screw you, but you really can't lay the blame on one person for this. And the reason I say you can't lay the blame on one person for this is because you could trace these bad decisions back to 2008, where you elevated Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. And that timeline of events led you to a situation where you had this man actually trying to convince the country that he was fit to serve as the world's most powerful man for 4 more years. This is Joe Biden today on the Delaware beach. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Like a turtle walking through the sand. Look at this.
Most powerful country on earth.
Oh. That was today. That was today. Now, the design flaw in this campaign is very simple. It's all predicated on
Joe
the idea
Biden's
that
hips.
this man spent the better part of his first term convincing people, insisting that he was fit for a second term. And because of the Democrats' obsession with identity politics, he felt he had to pick a woman. Because of the establishment's obsession with Kamala Harris, they told him it has to be this woman. And that set you up for a nightmare. Sports fans, if you watched Game 1 of the World Series this year, the Yankees brought in a lousy pitcher. Last out of the game, he gave up a grand slam. Yeah, that was a bad decision. That decision was set up 3 innings earlier where they took their ace pitcher out of the game before they had to. It's a similar situation here. You could trace this all the way back to Obama deciding for no reason he just had to elevate these 2 relics of a bygone era, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. That's what got you here. And Nancy Pelosi knows that. She's a pro. She's been in this business a very, very long time. She understands that. So, yeah, you could throw Biden under the bus for these decisions he made late in the game. This was a reckoning, decades in the making. They deserve every ounce of pain they are feeling right now.
Yeah, well, Obama elevated them to protect his legacy. And we have a story about that a little later. If you remember, after 2016, there was a perception that the left had momentum, that Keith Ellison was going to become the DNC chair, that these lower level candidates like AOC, what came to be known as the Squad, were going to gradually build a bench. And that would be a repudiation of everything that Barack Obama stood for. That is how profoundly narcissistic and how intrinsically antagonistic he was to the left politics that he claimed to believe in. It's just political reality. If they came in and proved that that's not political reality, that would have repudiated his entire term in office and the entire philosophy of politics that he foisted on people, very much like Bill Clinton's politics. Aim low, very little is possible. It's the nature of the system. If Sanders and a new wave of progressives had come in and completely upended that system, it would have cast a certain light on his presidency, which now, in the end, he's getting what I feel he has coming. He's going to end up far more despised than he might have if he had just let things play out.
Yes. And, one of our friends and contributors, Tusker, made this point on the election night stream. If the ruling class had just let Bernie win, they could let him win. What would he have done? He'd have probably passed the paid sick leave or whatever. They would, there's too much pharma influence, too much health insurance influence to get Medicare for all through.
A public option.
We would have done something like that. They would have given a little bit up, but they would have gotten to keep most of what they wanted relatively on the rails. Instead, they got this. Instead, you got Trump term 1 with a 4-year intermission of just absolute chaos and hell, and now you have Trump term 2. Like, wouldn't it have been easier to just let the guy give people some fucking paid family leave? Like, wouldn't that have been the easy way out? No, because it goes back to what you said earlier. The arrogance of these people is just unmatched. Yeah. They feel, no, we don't have to give anything up. We don't have to give a thing.
No, it's the horrible combination of greed and a belief in their own moral superiority. So you've got the combination that they constantly lust for more and don't want to give up any of what they have, combined with an unshakable belief in their right to dictate morality to the peasants.
Yep, absolutely.
Hey, I believe in having a substantial percentage of my financial future secured with gold and silver. That's why I decided to partner with our sponsor, Colonial Metals Group. They helped me set up a safe and secure self-directed IRA where I have access to my assets no matter what the stock market or, for that matter, what the government is doing. Let the team of experts at Colonial Metals Group help you protect your family's future. We put together a special offer for our audience. Click on the link in the description below or call the special 888 number, and you can receive up to $7,500 in free silver on a qualified purchase. Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.